Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey since day one. And that was about 4 years ago. So thank you, Folgers. We appreciate you so very much. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, aka Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for his contribution of his time, his voice, and his music for the intro that you just heard. He is an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite music streaming platforms. So huge thank you to him. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind all of the banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the horror genre and does amazing commission pieces. So thank you, Steve McGinnis. And tonight, we welcome the return of Dan and Teresa Duke, the great-grandchildren of Jesse James. And they're going to be discussing the new book, or one of their books. They have several. Jesse James and the Lost Templar Treasure. A little bit near and dear, to my heart for anybody who knows me. Both Amelia and I are very partial to, these sort of shows. And a whole lot of information coming out. And we're just waiting for both of our guests to pop in. But in order to connect up, guys, this is how it's going to work. We have to come into one of the 7 chat rooms. So please remember, it's like a super highway, as I always say. It looks like you're coming from 7 lanes down into 1 lane. Therefore, we will get to everyone as we can. It really depends on the pace that our guests are going. We can't jump ahead, go back, anything like that. Roku does not have a chat room. So for those of you guys who are on Roku or following along on the FM band or on the audio streams from different sites, we will do our very best to make sure that you get the full experience, as we say. So we've got Daniel popping in and Teresa, device not connected. Hello, Dan. How are you?
How you doing?
Hi, Dan. How are you?
Yeah, you didn't get to see Amelia the last time.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, last time it was me, Teresa, and Michelle, and hopefully everything turned out good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, my daughter had to go in for another biopsy on her kidney, but she's doing okay. But thank you.
Well, I'll pray for her.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I take all the prayers I can get.
I
watched the show today so that I could catch up and get the story. And I'm just so honored to be here speaking with both of you, because I really
our pleasure and our honor.
I know it's like I have a criminal mind and I love all of it. And I've worked in it for years. And I don't know if Michelle told you, but a dear friend, Jeff Mudgett, is the great-great-grandson of H.H. Holmes.
Oh.
So you might want to connect with him on Facebook. I could put in a good word for you.
I think Teresa's having a struggle. I can't bring it on. It says devices are not connected. So I don't know if she's going to want to do a restart. If you can let her know, maybe a restart, or she might be having to give StreamYard permission to use her camera. I'm not sure. Oh, she's gone.
We both live in rural areas, and so if I have to, if my connection starts to break up, let me know, And I can, it sounds weird, but I'll get in the truck and drive to the top of the hill behind the house on the property. And I always get great reception up there. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
That's really rural. I thought I was rural.
Well, we're not far from Austin. It's just the location of this house. Everything seems to fly over us. So.
Right.
Yeah, I have the same issue. You know, many times, like right before the show, I've messaged Michelle and said, no internet, like zero, intermittent. I might have to pop off and pop back on. It's just the way it is when you're out there. It's just, you know.
Yeah, it's like, I'm down. What I'd like, see, she just froze now. As she says that, she just froze.
Yeah, I've been having problems with it all day. Yesterday too.
See, look at you, just froze. I know.
Well, I just read a few minutes ago that they're expecting a solar storm to hit us tonight. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
I'm sure it does. Yeah, that's what she says. We're being hit by a 2 times class CME right now as we speak.
Wow.
Could explain a lot. Well, I'm telling you, we'll slowly get started. Wait for Teresa to make her way to us. Here's where I'd like to start. And when I read this, I was just like, wow, what a compliment this is. So I want to share it with everybody, especially our listeners who aren't watching us. And it's this right here. So this is, I guess, a review sort of thing. Someone who contributed and gave you a beautiful review. It says Daniel J. Duke has successfully cracked open part of the mystery surrounding the Templar treasure from Jerusalem that had been moved to the Americas to help establish a free nation. Jesse James and the Lost Templar treasure goes beyond just theorizing that treasure was moved to the Americas and in fact demonstrates the connections and methods utilized to hide certain treasures. There have been those who have sought to shape history to ensure the freedoms and artifacts could be preserved in the Americas. Daniel J. Duke's book is on the cutting edge of revealing some of what has remained hidden. Anybody who's interested in the Templar legacy and their connection with the Americas will find true gems in this book. And this is from Timothy W. Hogan, Templar Grand Master, author, and lecturer. What a compliment, you guys. Teresa, you made it.
Yes, my apologies.
Oh, that's okay. We're being
It's nice to have you. Nice to meet you, Teresa. Welcome.
Yeah, it's nice meeting you too.
Thank you.
So thank you for your patience.
Oh, no problem. It happens. This is quite a compliment. This is a really nice review.
Yeah, when my publisher sent that to me, when I wrote the book, anytime you write about, just right off the top of my head, I was thinking, okay, we've got an Old West outlaw. We're still shocked at the trail that our family research and genealogy has sent us down. Right. But you're first of all, Jesse James didn't die, as history said. He faked his death, lived to 97 in Texas. And then you go from that to secret organizations or secretive organizations, to famous people, infamous people, pirates, all the way back to the Templar and the treasures from Jerusalem. And then to have, I thought, okay, people are going to think I'm insane, but I'm going to write the book anyway. And then I get that glowing endorsement from the Grand Master of the Knights Templar, and I thought I was happy. I mean, you can't beat that. I thought even if everybody else thinks I'm crazy, he saw what I found, and that just made my day, made my year.
It should. It's very complimentary. So I guess we start off with a big wow factor. First of all, just people are like wow, So I guess I have to ask you both. Why? What led you to think that this was something that that Jesse would have been involved in? And what led you on the path? Whoever wants to go first, take a shot.
All right.
Take a shot.
When we started, our late mother, Betty Dorset Duke, started all this. My sister and I were in college. Mom had a lot of free time on her hand after dealing with us, all our lives. So she grew up hearing the rumor, this, the family story had been passed down through the generations that Jesse faked his death and didn't die as history said he did. And and that's my favorite picture of Mom. That was in San Angelo. She doesn't look too she was ready for a huge fight. Our detractors invited her to a get together, and right before she got there, they were proclaiming all over the internet that they were going to have a blood bath, and the blood was hers. And she shut them all down. It was a state of California Superior Court judge and several other, powerful people all gunning for her. And she, no pun intended, but she shot their stories full of holes. And that was a great day. That look on her face was, it just kind of highlights her determination.
That photo looks like it could have been taken today.
Yeah. And that was
I
like
mean,
20 years ago.
She's pretty ahead of her time in style.
Yeah. But so she had worked on proving, she wanted to find out if our family story was right, or if the history books were right. Was Jesse her great grandfather, or was that just some tall tale? And so she got on that trail and had proven before she died that the family story was true. But if I wasn't helping her with that, I would always work on the treasure side of it, because he left a map that was passed down through the family, and my great aunt Judy gave it to Mom, and Mom passed it on to us. But we always tried to figure out where this was, where was the treasure in Blevins, Texas.
So do you guys spend your childhood going to look for treasure?
Yeah, we would look, but on his map, like when you grow up and all the, when I was a kid, you saw the typical treasure map was X marks the spot, so many paces in some direction from the old oak tree or some landmark. But the map he left had no topographical references at all. It was just a geometric figure with some of the wording written in code. And the code was easy to figure out. You just couldn't figure out where to start, because it was just a geometric figure and a bunch of dots and a drawing of the sun in one side, and what looked like a roughly drawn profile of a man with a hat on. And he was looking through a circle, and then there was a lot of once the line went from his eye to the circle, it spread out in multiple dotted lines to all these different locations. But we couldn't ever figure out where we were supposed to start. And that led down a trail of all kinds of stuff. There was a guy who was a hoaxer. He claims to be Jesse, but he wasn't. His name was J. Frank Dalton. He wasn't Jesse. He also claimed to have been Kit Carson, claimed to be a senator from New York State, a lot of different things.
It's not like they can check the internet.
Yeah. So
it was a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot. There's a lot of interesting stories with him, but he did have knowledge of it. Found out years after years of research there's a million rabbit holes. I'm trying not to go down on this. But he had stayed after Jesse died in 1943, the real Jesse. J. Frank Dalton was an old man, but he had stayed. He went to Marble Falls, Texas, where one of Jesse's daughters was living, Ida, who was my great grandmother. And she had, a trunk full of Jesse's stuff, some of the maps and things like that. And he stayed across the street from where her house was in a hotel in Marble Falls, Texas. And some of her stuff went missing. There's a lot of weird stories on that. I'm not sure which story. I don't know if she sold him some of the stuff, or if he stole it, or what, or some of her kids may have stole it and sold it. Because that's a long story. I don't want to cause any family arguments, but
don't do that. Not that we don't like groundbreaking information here, but we don't.
Yeah. Somehow he had J. Frank Dalton had some of the information on the treasures, a lot more than anybody should have had. And I think that's how he got it, but there's no proof of how he got it. But long story short, and went from that, there was mention of involvement in the Knights of the Golden Circle, they were a clandestine secret organization who backed the Confederacy during the Civil War. And their job during the Civil War was to slow movement of Union troops, burn bridges, railroads, stuff like that. Right. And after the Civil War was over, they changed their goal And their stated goal, according to a lot of people, and there's no proof of that, was that they wanted to gain as much money as possible so they could fund a second civil war. And that reminds me of, football teams and rivals. The one who lost, there's always a group who just they want a rematch.
Right.
So
right.
that's what they were up to. A lot of secret stuff, alleged murders, bank robberies, train robberies, the same stuff Jesse did and any other outlaw. But there's a lot of people who claim that the Knights of the Golden Circle were, that members of that organization were people like Jesse, Albert Pike, and all these other famous people. Anytime somebody's, got a story like that, they want to attach well-known names to try to add some legitimacy to their story.
Around, yeah.
Yeah, but there's no proof. No one has any proof or has ever shown any proof that that's the case. Mm-hmm. Albert Pike, nobody knows if he was or wasn't. I wouldn't doubt if he was. He was a Confederate brigadier general. Mm-hmm. Maybe he was a part of it. I don't know. But there's no proof. So I always try to, if there's no proof, it's a good story. Mm-hmm. And that's all you can just put it on the back burner. And if proof comes along someday, then that'll change stuff. But until then, now I'm starting to go down another rabbit hole. With the KGC and their treasure stories, there was this template, and J. Frank Dalton supposedly put that template out there. And I thought, okay, I don't know if this is true or not. Some of the stuff he knew, like locations, robberies, people's names. He knew things that most people wouldn't have known. So he obviously had some information. So I thought, okay, we'll try this template and see if it helps with the family treasure map. And I couldn't. First of all, it's and I think I sent you a picture of the template. There's a rough one and then my own interpretation of it.
Yeah, there's a rough one, and I'm just looking here.
It's show and tell.
Yeah, it's like it's a
veil template. It's the other one, though, right?
I love it.
Yeah, veil template. Either one would work.
Well,
but
I have them both up. You tell me which one you want. Which one do you want to start with? I have them both.
I guess the most basic one.
Okay, so the original rough template?
Yes, that one.
Okay. Got it. All right, bear with me. Here we go. Bam. There.
Yeah, sorry, I meant that to be a white background. I apologize. It looks like a PNG. Sorry.
Yeah, we're good.
But okay. Yeah, that's the rough template. So he put that out there, and I thought, okay, something like that. I don't know, which of those dots or corners it leads me to the treasure, and what's the scale and dimension of the template. I had no clue as to where to start with that. So I put that on the back burner. A couple of years later, we met Wagner Carr. He was a former attorney general for the state of Texas. He contacted my mom because he wanted to talk about the treasure and Jesse James. And he knew all about the Knights of the Golden Circle and the template. And they talked about that. He had his driver send my mother and I out to 3 locations where large treasure caches were recovered. And it used to drive us crazy. One of them was 12 miles from our house. And I thought, man, all those times we struggled for money, if I'd have known that thing was right down the road.
Yeah, you guys have been out there with your pickaxes and shovels.
Yeah. The one that was 12 miles from us, according to Wagner Carr's driver, took several 18-wheelers, several trips each to unload all the gold. And according to Wagner Carr, the Texas Rangers oversaw the recovery of it.
Right.
And he had also mentioned that Pretty Boy Floyd used to stop by there and make deposits in that cache when he was on his way to San Antonio. And I always thought San Antonio was an interesting place for outlaws, just because the Wild Bunch, Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid, Etta Place, they all would go to San Antonio at times. Or I'd seen that in stories. It seemed like there was some kind of connection in San Antonio, and I still haven't found out what that connection was, but it was popular for a lot of outlaws and mob guys back in the 1920s. So I thought this was odd that it's connected to Jesse James and also well-known other outlaws in different periods that came after him.
It's a
So-
good route for the oh my gosh. Today's one of those days. Everything is right there and then it disappears. For the bootleggers.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a great
true.
way up the side to Canada. That's part of that history.
That
And
makes
there was
sense.
a lot of speakeasies, but not only that, at the time during that whole early 1900s, even the late 1800s, you had a lot of what we call now casinos, but back then they were just poker games going on,
Yeah.
like in the speakeasy. So it does make sense that they were all there. There must have been a trail
Yeah.
that was
there's
already
a
forged.
a lot of the old cattle trails that went through
Yes.
Texas are now highways.
Yeah,
Mm.
That makes a lot of sense.
absolutely.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Mm.
It's only because
So-
it's only because I worked on a case from the early 1900s years ago that I knew that.
That's
Wow.
pretty.
Wow,
That's really
that's
cool.
cool.
But so Wagner Carr told us all that, showed us the 3 locations, and then another man named George Roming. And George Roming was a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Freemason. He was an old man. When he grew up in Blevins, Texas, near our great-great-grandfather. And he said he and everybody in that area knew that our great-great-grandfather, his alias was J.L. Courtney. He said everybody knew Mr. Courtney was really Jesse James.
Right.
And he was also a Mason, and all the Masons in his lodge knew the same thing.
And
Um,
he would
James
also,
was a Mason. Sorry,
also-
Teresa.
Jesse, Grandpa Courtney, Jesse James, helped. He for some reason, had trust in would have him help him bury some of the treasure.
yeah. Well, George was a kid when
Yeah.
Jesse was an old man. George was like 10 or 11 years old. And his story, he told us when he was a kid, he was 10 or 11. Jesse swore him to an oath and paid him to help him move 700 bars of gold about 20 miles from Blevins. And he said when they got there, they met 2 other old men, and each of those old men had hired and sworn to secrecy a kid they trusted, they were all about George's age, 10 or 11 years old. And the kids dug the hole. He said it was about 8 foot wide, 8 foot square, 8 foot long, 8 foot wide, and about 8 foot deep. And they put railroad ties in the bottom of it to keep the gold from settling because it's real heavy.
Yeah.
They unloaded the gold, put the gold in, and buried it. Jesse kept 20 bars for himself, and the rest of it went in the hole. So it was, according to George, 680 bars of gold, each one weighing 15 pounds apiece, approximately. And he said they felt like about 15 pounds. So that's like over $500 million in today's money, easy.
Wow.
But so, he drew a map. George was in a hospital in El Paso. Mom and I went out to see him, and he drew a map on a brown paper bag from the grocery store for us. And we've still got the map, but the map showed, we were excited. We were all excited. He said he'd never told anybody. He kept his secret. He was old, in his 80s, sickly. He said the other 2 kids who went to who helped him, they all went to World War II, and everybody went after the war. George got back home. All the old men and the two young men who were his age were dead.
Wow.
The 2 boys got killed in the war. George is the only one of those 3 who made it back. So
Wow.
George, according to George, and that sounds like a typical Old West treasure tale. There's a group of people and only one made it back. But I thought, okay. But he drew the map, gave us the location. Mom and I went straight out there looking for it. It's on Fort Hood military base, and there's no way we're going on that and start.
Okay.
Can you imagine getting on that and getting caught digging a hole?
No, you get on the premise with the right connections. Is there any railroad tracks that go through there?
Railroad tracks.
Yes.
There may have been at one time. There used to be a little community called Sparta. It was Sparta, Texas. And it was right there on the river. Now it's a lake. That's the other thing, is they created a lake in 1954 the Corps of Engineers did, and it flooded a lot of that area, flooded Sparta. And we believe that not positive, but I believe the gold, if it's right where we think it is under the lake and probably about 15 foot of water.
You need to find something that gives you
I would love
proof that there was a railroad track around there.
I'll look. Thanks.
That's your.
Yeah, I can look up like 1800s and early 1900s railroad. Well, that would have been in the 1930s.
It's quite extensive too. It's quite extensive, so you should have no trouble finding that.
Yeah, I'll look it
give
up.
out too much information on air. 3 million people.
Well, thanks.
3 million people going to be looking for a railroad now.
It's interesting. It's interesting you mentioned that, because one of the other Wagner Carr, the former Attorney General for Texas, one of the sites he showed us, there was an old railroad spur, and that's where he said that's how they delivered the gold to the cache when they buried it. There was an old railroad spur. They backed the train cars up, unloaded the gold, and took off. And that was right next to an old cemetery.
Somebody went home with some gold and it wasn't supposed to, though. It wasn't all there.
That's interesting. That
Sorry.
wouldn't
I'm not the guest. You are. Sorry.
No, that wouldn't shock me at all.
I'm trying to turn it off and I can't. It's really hard.
Well, that's because you're supposed to share the information.
I know. It's just anything criminal is so intriguing to me. Like,
anything you want to add, please. Feel free.
We love it. We take the information in like sponges. So
no problem. I mean, I'd share it. I don't hold back things, and most of the time, I talk to Michelle about it, because sometimes I'm not sure if people want it or not. But this is it's very strong to me with the railroad track. There's something that was built over this, and then something on top of it, and let me just tell you this, because I'm being told any water source can be drained.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the message for you.
That's okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
We have a friend. I met her through this. I met her about a year and a half ago. Her name's Heather Besser, and she's a medium. She and of course, I was real skeptical about a lot of. I've always been skeptical.
Yeah, but, you should be. You should be. I am, and I do it.
Well, yeah, and if you're going to prove something, if somebody's got a claim, then when they say something, they'll either prove themselves right or wrong. But she's been right on the money with a lot of stuff. Answered a lot of questions for us.
Good.
Are you a medium as well?
I'm a medium and a remote viewer as well. Yeah,
okay.
But I've worked with law enforcement, so for me, this is very familiar.
That's really cool.
Yeah, but it's all about the details, and if she's giving you details, trust it.
Okay. Yeah, I do. She's proven herself. I trust a lot of what she says.
Yeah,
so
that's good. That's good. She was sent to you for a reason.
Yeah, and that's exactly what she said. So interesting. But
she was sent to you for a reason. Yeah.
Well, thanks. Without going down, I could ramble on this for days, literally. But George Roming, former World War II vet and 32nd degree Mason, showed us one location. The Wagner Carr showed us 3 locations where treasures were. And I thought, okay, now I've got this. I've got home, got on Google Earth, I overlaid the template over the known locations where they showed us. And it fit like it was perfect with the center of it on Jesse's property. And that made my day. I thought, oh my God, it actually works. It gave me the scale, everything I needed, I thought. And then, so I thought, okay, let's work with this. And I found out there's actually three templates. It's the same template, but there's a large, medium, and small template. And I put those all on. I worked with it, and it wasn't overnight. This took a while with, the other 2 templates and the discovery of those. It ended up it ties in with a lot of esoteric. I wanted to know why those dimensions, why that scale, why this many miles. It all tied in, I found out later, with Kabbalah. And not just Jewish Kabbalah, but Christian Kabbalah, occult Kabbalah, and Jewish Kabbalah. And I thought, this is awesome, which led me to reading more about Manly Palmer Hall and others. His wife, Manly Palmer's Hall, I'm starting to get tongue tied. Manly Palmer Hall's wife, Marie Bauer Hall. She had discovered what she claims to be a treasure in Williamsburg, Virginia, under the Bruton Parish Church. She claimed, and a lot of people mocked her. She claimed there were secret ciphers in the writings of Shakespeare, and she figured those out. It led her to Williamsburg, Virginia, and then she found anagrams on some of the anagrams and encryptions on some of the tombstones in the Bruton Parish Church cemetery, and it led her to the original foundations of the original church that was there, that was underground. Well, nobody believed her. All the experts, mocked her. They didn't believe her. Somehow she got permission to prove them wrong. So she excavated and found that there was a church prior to that one. And she found the original foundations based on the encryptions and anagrams and the writings of Shakespeare and the stuff in the cemetery. So in addition to that shocked everybody. She proved the experts wrong. She proved she was right. But she also said there's a vault 22 feet beneath the original church where the altar was. And in that vault, there's treasures of like the traditional silver, gold, jewels, stuff like that. But information and documents that she said would shake the pillars of world history.
Absolutely.
Then all of a sudden, according to her and other reading, research on that, they said that the Rockefellers purchased most of the town. They don't own the church, but they control the board of directors, and nobody's allowed to excavate it. She also said there were tunnels that went from that vault to other homes and locations in the town.
Yeah, which is quite normal. If you were, person of prominence, you would have tunnels that would take you to places. You don't want anybody knowing your business.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Moving your money around, moving your.
And I don't know what. Oh yeah, the reading, trying to find out why the dimensions, why the scale. All that led me to stuff like that. Victoria Peak, New Mexico, where a huge treasure. It was over $3 billion in gold back in the early 40s, late 30s, when that was supposedly found. That I thought, okay, I don't know if these have any connection with the template, with this. I don't know. I was just at that point, it's almost like you're just grasping for straws. Seeing, there's a puzzle. You don't know. You're just grabbing parts of that puzzle and wondering if they even are part of the puzzle. So I kept researching, and I didn't know. At first, I thought, I don't think these have anything to do with that. But a lot of people claimed that Victoria Peak in New Mexico was a part of the KGC treasures. Yet some of the treasures, a lot of the treasures in it, dated back to, there were coins dated to the 1300s. There was supposedly a tiara, a diamond and ruby encrusted tiara, stuff like that, all in it. Royalty, stuff dealing with royalty. There were Pony Express mail packages from the 1800s. It's like somebody had been creating that catch for centuries, or somebody got a huge catch all at one time and just took it out to the desert and buried it in a mountain. That doesn't even make any sense. Right. Some people try to claim that Victorio, the famous Apache chief, put it all there from, after robbing Pony Express and settlers. And I thought, no, you could take all the settlers in the Old West and all of their belongings wouldn't amount to $3 billion in gold and all the tiaras.
I don't think the Apache people would have cared for it in one form or another.
The tiara has an Icelandic connection.
An Icelandic connection, like the Vikings?
Like Templar?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I was getting at.
It's an Icelandic connection. It's got nothing to do with Europe.
That's exactly what I believe.
There was emeralds in there as well.
Oh, that's really cool. Well, so I didn't know at the time if that tied in or not. And tell me if I'm getting off topic, because there are a million rabbit holes.
You go. It's your book, so, you guys go.
Well, I went from that. I thought, okay, I had Google Earth, I had the template. I started with Jesse and the surrounding area. And I started putting the template, getting the template and overlaying it around the original spot and just working out from there until over a long time and a lot of hours, I covered most of the U.S., not all of it. And it also gets hard to do that because if you draw a straight line, two parallel lines that are, say, 50 miles apart from Texas to the East Coast, by the time you get to the East Coast, they're a lot closer because of the curvature of the earth. And I'm not a cartographer by any means, so it's kind of tough. When the further east and west I get, the less accurate the template is. For me, I would have to know known spots in every place there is for it to to adjust it. But
you need a scientist who studies the environment over the last few decades with the storms and the different hurricane patterns and things like that, as well as the construction of certain areas, because it shifts the land, and that'll help you. What you also need is to find a code decipher, like in the Zodiac, and he will be retired. So you need to put that out there on the internet somehow.
Okay.
He'll be retired, but that's what you need. You need someone who worked for the government, law enforcement agency high up that would know how to decipher a code.
All right.
Oh, that's a great idea.
That's what you need. That's why you're having so much trouble. You don't know where to start because you don't know how to decipher the code that's in there.
Well, there's some places. If I go due north of Jesse's place, I go through Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska. Those are right on the money. And we've been warned. We went to one spot outside of Lawton, Oklahoma, and we're warned not to go back. We didn't tell anybody we were going. It was me, my dad, and my mother, and Teresa. We went up to Lawton, to that area, looked for it. I found symbols. I found JJ carved in a rock. I've got photos of that, right where the story said they were. And we were on the wrong side of a road. I think it was on the other side of the road. And it's on Comanche Reservation. And that, which makes a lot of sense because Quanah Parker, who was known by a lot of people as the last great Comanche chief, was friends with Jesse, Frank, and a lot of other people. And one of his descendants told us that Quanah used to set up women and booze for Roosevelt when he would go out on his wolf hunts. So it was very, very interesting. Yeah, that's the stuff you don't ever really
to say the least. Yeah.
Yeah. You never see that in the history of the president, but
no.
But I'm trying to get back to where I was on that. So I had to scale the dimensions. I wanted to know why it tied in with Freemasons, back to the Templar, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I noticed there was another, the treasure in Williamsburg, Virginia, and the one in New Mexico at Victoria Peak. They're on a separate template. It's a template that's in the shape of the Kabbalistic tree of life.
Yeah,
to make a long story short, and I don't want.
Was designed after that.
I have to fight not to get into too many details, just because it would take forever. But so I discovered that there's the tree of life template, the template that you showed earlier. There's a large, medium, and small. I found out later that represents a veil, which ties in perfectly with the tree of life. In the tree of life, there's 3 veils of negative existence. Okay, and that explains the three
Which one
templates.
do you want first? Which one? Do you want the veil template or do you want the tree of life?
Either one.
Okay. I say, because the tree of life, it said that Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland was actually designed with the tree of life in mind, of course. So I've been, and it's pretty close. So here we go. Oh.
Yeah, that's the dressed up version.
Yes.
Like the fleur-de-lis. I use the fleur-de-lis instead of turkey tracks, which is on the old West version of it. The fleur-de-lis is what it represents, in my opinion. Everything about that template represents the tree of life, just in a different form. The fleur-de-lis is also ties back to legends of the tree of life when it comes to its origins, which tie back to ancient Egypt and lilies.
Right.
And then it moved from there, into Europe. But the tree of life it plays a huge role in that whole story, and it ties in with the esoteric beliefs, Gnosticism, the Templar. It just keeps going, and not only that, when I completed the Templar, it's not complete like across the entire U.S. like I'd mentioned, but the tree of the template, when you put it together and keep expanding out, makes a grid pattern, and the grid is like a veil, and the grid pattern is also helpful, like you've mentioned earlier, topography. Over the years, there's erosion, and the land changes. If you have a coordinates, which they had with the grid pattern, the templates make almost like an esoteric or occult coordinates. And a lot of people hear occult, and they always, I get a lot of, in the Bible Belt anyway, you get a lot of people thinking, oh, that's like Satan's coordinates.
Of course,
but it's not. Occult just means secret and hidden, and that's the meaning of occult. But anyway, so I after all of this, trying to make a long story short, I believe the whole reason for the template, the Tree of Life and the Veil templates, weren't only to hide it. I think it also served as an occult coordinate system for them. If you're going to hide stuff, you have your own using coordinates like that. It doesn't matter if the land changes over a couple of centuries or not. You're going to know right where it is.
Exactly.
And
there's a lot of hidden meanings with it that only people in that position, or who might have been Templars or of certain societies, would understand what they are.
Yeah. Things shift more in the ocean than they do on land.
That's true. That makes sense.
Yeah. Question: did Jesse ever go to Washington, D.C.? Do you know?
I don't know. There's a lot of room.
Sure. That's a great
question.
It
wouldn't shock me. There's a lot of stories. People say, well, just when you read about the robberies, they went to Kentucky. They'd be in Kentucky, hit a train or a bank, and then you'd hear a couple of weeks later they were in Oklahoma or out in California at his uncle. He had an uncle who lived in California. And by the way, Brad Pitt owns his uncle's house, which is kind of neat. It was Paso Robles, California.
And this is true. The grid is in DC. Absolutely.
Yeah. And DC, the symbols in DC have a lot in common with the symbols in the meanings behind them. The Tree of Life plays a big role in the symbols with DC too. And I think they're all connected. After I'd found that, I wanted to know who was involved, who did this, because after you look at the meanings, the symbols, interpretations behind them. I love one from Albert Pike had said something about the beauty of symbols is that they have multiple meanings.
Absolutely.
And that I love.
Like that top part can even be portrayed as a mast of a ship.
That's true. I didn't ever look at it that way.
You have the cross there, and then you have the triangular,
bring it back,
and it reads mast to me, a ship's mast.
Okay,
that makes sense.
Bring it back up. There we go. Right
that
here.
Is cool.
That top. See how the
my
cross?
gosh, yes.
That looks. I never thought of it in that light. That is awesome.
No, it reads like a ship's mast to me. The whole shape.
Oh wow!
It'd be interesting to see what symbolism were on the ships at the time, to see if anything links with that.
And like the cross of Lorraine.
That comes from El Paso, and that's where my family lineage is from, the northern France and throughout Normandy, of course, as you know.
That's really cool.
And that's where the cross is, El Paso, Lorraine.
If you look at the bottom one, it almost resembles the flag of Scotland with the cross across the blue.
Oh,
it's on an angle. So it's perspective, and you can read more into it and then break it down like little by little.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. I know the Templars were pirates.
The symbolism in it is so deep. Yeah. I know. I'm not. I know better than to think, oh, I found the answer. There's more than one answer on a lot of that stuff. There's multiple answers, and they fit to make a very complex picture of history from the time that, from the days of the temple in Jerusalem, through the Templar until our current times. There's a lot of people knowing that we've been warned away from things by shadowy people, people who would tell us things that would happen, and you a week before it happened, and you'd see it when it did happen on the national news.
Right.
It makes a believer out of you. There's a lot of powerful people involved in this.
Brings your mortality to light.
It would make a lot of sense because, and again, like Dolly hit on this, Templars were pirates, and they were when they got here. The stuff would have been on the ships, and it would have made it to this side of the world. Well, we know it made it to the side of the world regardless, but that would just give more opportunity to bring over some of the other stuff you were describing, like tiaras.
You're right.
Things of that nature.
Cabochon settings will give you a dating on that tiara as well.
Cabochon
first cabochon settings will give you a date on that tiara, and it was gold, but it sat more like a crown than a tiara. Symbols are not there so that they jump out at you. They're there to be, to be not obvious and deceptive to only the people who need to know. So it's always you have to switch your perspective on things. And think of the history, what was going on then, and see how it fits in.
You're right.
With the symbolism.
There was another one, Fulcanelli. What you just said reminds me of what Fulcanelli, famous alchemist. He wrote what was the name of the book? I can't remember the name of the book for some reason. He had a lot of writings, but there was a quote from him where he'd mentioned how he was talking about the veil symbolism. Christophorus. There's an ancient, like a statue, and it's a story about a guy named Christopher, and they called him Christophorus. He had a belt around him. There's a statue of it in a mansion in France, which Fulcanelli was talking about. The statue, it's got a crisscross pattern on the belt. The belt was a symbol, according to Fulcanelli, of the mercury bringing the gold to the surface. The alchemist's work and as part of the work. Yeah. But he said Christ represented kind of like the king cake, the old king cakes during Mardi Gras. They've got the crisscross pattern, and there's a baby hidden in the cake. It's basically alchemical symbolism. The king cake thing ties back directly into alchemy. But
it's got nothing to do with you find baby Jesus and you have to do the dishes.
Yeah, exactly.
It has nothing to do with that. Yeah,
and they hid a lot of they were masters at hiding symbols and the meanings. But he said what you had said. He was talking about symbols. If you don't mind, I'll read part of what he said real quick.
Yeah,
he said, "I've already said several times, and I will repeat again, that the whole work of the art consists in processing this mercury until it receives the above mentioned sign, the crisscross sign. And the sign has been called by the ancient authors the seal of Hermes, seal of the wise, sail des sages, sail salt." He said, being put instead of scale, seal, which confuses the mind of seekers. And I loved that sentence because they've done an awesome job at confusing the mind of seekers.
The seekers, they have. They have.
Yeah.
They have.
But
I mean, this is stuff that you find, all over the world. And there's no doubt that the Templars made it to this part of the world. We know that they came in with the help of Norsemen, Vikings, right? Family. And they made it over here. They made it up through northern part of Canada. They made it up and through eastern Canada. They made their way down. They made their way across. There have been stuff found all the way to Niagara Falls, coming in along the Great Lakes. People have found stuff. Then they made it, probably came into the St. Lawrence Seaway. They would have had a major struggle at Niagara Falls because there's a 450 feet up that you have to go.
Portage
to the other lakes. Yeah. So they would have had to portage in. It would have been a monumental feat just to get across, unless you went across the north, come down, and then at that point I could put you in touch with friends, and as I mentioned before, who have a sighting. They have a Templar. They have Templar caves and monuments right in
I believe it.
right on the reservation.
I believe it.
Reservation.
There,
And
well,
that
and
might
that
help
ties
you as
in.
well.
Wayne Murphy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Usually
awesome.
he
I'd
pops
love to
in.
meet him.
He's probably still working. Usually he pops in.
I'm going to send you a link to the show that he did, because he spoke about in great detail about the finds that were on this reservation on the Knights Templar. And we know that the cave that was found there, the only one with that symbolism that has ever been found, is in the holy city of Jerusalem.
You know, another thing, when another thing that thrilled me on this, I thought, okay, there's the tree of life, there's the three veils of negative existence. Why did they do that? I think it served a lot of purposes. It wasn't just hiding the treasure. It was also a sacred thing, almost like building a temple in a hidden temple. But there was more to it. The tree of life, I thought, okay, this is awesome. Had to take a break for a little while just to clear my head. And I would typically do that over the years. I would research day and night, driving myself into the ground, looking for something. And every time I took a break, things would click.
Yeah, because when you're forcing it, you don't see what's right in front of you. A lot of this stuff is in plain sight. You're just, you need to take a breath.
Yeah.
Right, Teresa? Am I right? You need to, both of you.
What do you have to add to this?
Yeah.
Well,
how have you been involved in all this, Teresa? We'll just jump a little bit.
Well, to be honest with you, I helped mainly with the proving our great grandfather was Jesse James, and then Danny was the one who was the mastermind behind all of this.
Right.
So he kind of blew me away with all of this stuff.
I'm not going to let her forget that she just called me a mastermind.
I have
never
brothers.
live it down.
I have brothers. I get it. There's three.
Never live it down.
Yeah.
He really was. Like this book right here was all Danny, and I'm still kind of blown away how he, just how he came to all of this. So mine was more just proving Grandpa was, Jesse James, but I love all the symbolism and the hidden meanings. It's incredible, and it can be mind-boggling too.
Right.
And I knew, there was a real strong Masonic connection with all of this, which is one of the main reasons I joined the Masons in 2019. Now I'm a 32nd degree. I'm 32nd degree Scottish Rite. But what shocked me, I thought when I went to the Blue Lodge, the first three degrees. Anyway, when I went to the Blue Lodge, what shocked me was I thought, okay, finally, I'm in a place where they all know exactly what I'm talking about. Most of the guys don't know a thing about it. So there's a lot of people who do, but most of them don't know anything about the treasures.
Right.
It's kind of like they're good guys. They're very intelligent. They don't know anything about that.
Right.
But I talked to a lot of 33rd degree Masons. One of my favorites was Dr. Casebolt, who's since passed away, but he knew exactly what I was talking about, and he filled in some blanks for me. But we were talking before I'd become a Mason, and he almost told me a big secret, but he held off, and he said, once you've joined, I'll tell you the rest of the story. And then he got sick and passed away. After I thought I joined, I thought finally I'm going to know, and he unfortunately passed away. But it was just nice to know that he knew exactly what I was talking about with the Templar, the stories of Jesus and Mary and their lineage, and all of that. He knew exactly what I was talking about.
Right.
And that when I found the scale, the dimensions, all of that stuff, I wanted to know who was behind it. I know Jesse couldn't have done all of that. There's no way one man could have done all of that.
No.
And I knew he was a Mason. Masons were like the common denominator. Anybody I found while doing all the research who knew anything about it was a Freemason. Like in Jesse's diary, we have one of his diaries. He detailed when they went on a robbing spree in Louisiana from Shreveport down to Nacogdoches, and they crossed over on the Louisiana side. and then went back north, robbed a stage. On their trail, they stayed at a man's house named G. Fontenot, Gervais Fontenot. And Gervais, I thought, okay, well, who's this guy? Anybody mentioned in Jesse's diary, we've always researched as much as we can to know every detail of that person's life that's available. Well, I found out right off the bat, G. Fontenot was a retired U.S. Marshal. And I thought, what the hell is Jesse James staying
That's
the
a bit of
night
like an
at a U.S. Marshal?
oxymoron side of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
I thought this
He
was
was
odd.
quite.
So-
He was quite the chameleon. Like he.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Well, he also, researching Gervais, I found his family, one of their websites, and they had all their genealogy. Gervais' uncle was Jean Lafitte, the famous
come
pirate.
on. Really?
And I thought, oh my God, this is insane.
You just
So-
keep connecting the dots.
Yeah.
So, we
That's
had the
amazing.
Attorney General for the state of Texas telling us about Pretty Boy Floyd and some other guys who came after Jesse. We knew about, then I find out about Jean Lafitte, who came before Jesse. And it's like a network of criminals. And they all, the big thing with Jean Lafitte, I was reading about him because I didn't know much about him other than he was a pirate. And I loved the story. The governor of Louisiana put a price on his head. So Jean put a bigger price on the governor's head. And I always liked that. But anyway, Jean Lafitte helped the U.S. defeat the British. And he had, and this is in the history books, it's quoted by, established historians. Jean Lafitte had Masonic communications with Andrew Jackson. You can't have Masonic communications unless both parties are a Mason.
Or a Mason. That's right.
And that was all the proof I needed. Jean Lafitte was a Mason, which ties in that all the pieces started falling together. And then, it was almost like doing a family tree only for an organization. Anybody who was connected. So I started with Jesse, and I started going back. There's Albert Pike, there's Jean Lafitte. It goes back to other Masons who tie in with some of the founders of the country. From them to Francis Bacon. And I thought finally, and I found out about that because of Marie Bauer Hall and all of her work. Well, when I found out about that, I thought, okay, Francis Bacon's the guy behind it all. That makes sense. He was a genius, polymath. And then for about 3 days, I was satisfied until I found out it went further. Something kept nagging me. And so I kept researching, went from Francis Bacon to John Dee, the original 007 alchemist, sorcerer, wizard. There's all kinds of stories about him. But it went from him.
Crisscrosses the globe too, doesn't it? Like it's
exactly. And it went from him
that's the crazy part of it.
through other alchemists, famous alchemists, some are, infamous, famous, all the way back to people. Well, I'm trying to cut it short, but it even ties in with the King of Portugal at the time. I can't remember.
Of course it does.
But yeah, and he was a Templar.
he was a grand master as well.
And it went from them all the way back through famous and infamous people to Jewish rabbis, back through them to a rabbi known as Rashi, who was the famous favored court guest of Hugh de Champagne, one of the founders of the Templar.
That's right.
And I thought, and when I got there, I finally felt some satisfaction. I'd followed the trail as far as I could, and it was a definite trail from Jesse James through Masons, Freemasonry, all the way back to the Templar.
I can connect yet more. I have other notes too that goes back, even from some of my family stuff that I could just send you, because it will create another connection from Portugal to the Sinclairs through marriage.
Wow.
Marriage.
And Christopher Columbus married into that family.
I think it was the son that married a Sinclair daughter. That's right.
Okay. And
that's what it is. But the father-in-law, his wife's father, owned a fleet of ships.
Yeah.
He wasn't also Grand Master. He owned all the ships that they used. But just think about Portugal, the Port du Grail.
Yes.
The Port
of the Grail.
Grail.
Yep.
It's always been a Templar city. Always.
But Portugal doesn't have an R after the G.
No, but it's just the Port du Grail.
Can I just step in for a minute? Because I'm in my own world and I'm listening to you. Honestly, I am. My great uncle, great uncle, my last name is Pisano. My family built Pisa.
Wow.
Leonardo Pisano is Fibonacci. Fibonacci sequence is in the tree of life.
Yes.
And it's been
Yes.
sitting with me since you showed me that.
Yep. Well, and also the Jewish rabbis refer to the Fibonacci sequence as the love series, love numbers. And they've got their own Kabbalistic belief on that, but it's amazing how that works. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to.
No, not at all. I'm just having trouble because I'm seeing, like the coin, like the circles. There's 10. That's like doesn't fit with his sequence. So I think there's something there. There's something there that has to be. Sorry, because the Star Tower have been bound. There's 10. What are the 10 symbols? Because Fibonacci does not end on a 10.
Ties in with 10 dimensions, but there's also, and I know it's there's also
I'm saying it doesn't tie in with his sequence.
Oh yeah,
it says 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, it doesn't tie in with his sequence, so there's something that's off there. You got to find what's off.
I'm going to solve it right tonight on this show.
Pardon?
Go, Bubbles.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry.
Right now on
I'm
show.
sorry.
No, do it. Just go.
I love it. I love
it. Very interesting.
That's what I said. Let's solve it tonight on the show.
No, I won't solve it, but I honestly feel like the fact that it doesn't fit Fibonacci's sequence is a key to understanding the points.
It could be that one little.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, maybe it's the
how
one
often
thing
do
that
I think of him? I hate math. I can't draw. my ancestors built flippin' Pisa. They paint. I can't do any of that. But this is just too strong to ignore.
But maybe that's the idea, that it does
that's
step
what
outside
I mean.
of that box.
It's an
You have
amazing.
to step outside. There's the 10 symbolizes something else. It doesn't fit with his sequence.
There's a lot of.
And I hate math. Like seriously, I hate math.
Oh, I was never a fan of mathematics at all. I hated it. This forced me, and this made it fun. Actually, trying to figure out the dimensions, learning about Kabbalah, and I didn't care. All I knew about Kabbalah when I started this was, it was something Hollywood celebrities did, and they put a red string on their wrist. That's all I knew. And then, of course, so there's all the conspiracy theories all over the internet that you see about it. But when I got into this, it forced me. I started looking up, Orthodox Jewish rabbis' websites. There's a couple that have websites that were very helpful because their alphabet is also their numbers. Their letters are their numbers. They're interchangeable, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful to me the way it all works. And this fell in line perfectly with the gematria.
That 10 symbolizes something else. I don't know if it's 10 heads. I don't know what it is, but it's not. And I agree with Dolly. There are 12 dimensions. The Fibonacci sequences describes the portals.
Yes, I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
And
so
I also want to just she sent me a message as well. So it just happened. I just happened to see it. Usually if it's not on email, I don't see it. But she said, please let you know. She goes, I hinted as to what happened to a chunk of that treasure. Oil wells, hundreds of them. My dad was a 33rd degree Mason as well. Oil wells throughout Texas, hundreds of them, and they use it to fund their hospitals.
Yeah.
So that's where a part of that treasure allegedly went.
There's a lot of, what you just said. I'm not going to say it on air, but we've been told a couple of things that ties in very strongly with that.
Yeah,
right.
I don't think it's all there.
But you'll also be happy to know, or interested to know, that Dolly is possibly a relative and related to Jesse James.
I would love to talk to her.
I know. Bam! There's another shot. Every time you come on the show.
But hey, I thought Glenn Close was like impressive yesterday when she said that.
I know.
I'm like, what?
I know. So there we go.
Yeah, I would love to talk with Dolly.
I
that
know.
would be cool.
We just try to be the gift that keeps on giving. It's just amazing though how things go full circle and how things synchronicities, right?
It's well, it's
Yeah.
because you're both being so generous with the information rather than holding on to it, because it is the passion of solving this, and it would be beautiful to be able to resolve this in your lifetime for your mom and your family.
Virginia
know?
connection.
Yeah, there has to be.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
and that's
I
another
don't
thing.
feel like there's a state he hasn't touched.
There's a lot. He's been that guy. It amazes me at how quickly they traveled just with horse wagons and ships.
Mhm.
I mean, they visited more places than most people today do. It's amazing to me, and
Well,
it's just
they had the thirst to explore too. We don't.
that's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
I have the thirst to explore a beach in the Caribbean.
Yeah,
That's my thirst.
with
So,
me, it's the Amalfi
I'm right
Coast.
there with you.
yeah,
I
let's go.
I want to see
I
the
gotta
blue
be knee
waters in the
deep in the dirt
Mediterranean.
somewhere.
Yeah, Michelle
I have
likes to explore. I like to explore the
do.
beach
I'm
and the
an
rum in
explorer.
the region.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, there
What kind
is
of
a
rum do
place.
you have? That's great. Add ice. Let's go. Leave me here. Yeah.
You know, the template ties in with that too. There's a Castel del Monte in
Mhm.
Puglia region of Italy.
Puglia?
It's Puglia. I trust me. I can
Yeah, you
butcher
don't.
words.
No, I'm just helping
pronunciation.
you. You don't pronounce the G in Italian.
Puglia.
We don't even know why it's there.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
kind
just
of like
Puglia.
guacamole.
Yeah,
So Puglia.
yeah.
Puglia.
Well done. Yeah.
Castel del Monte. It's an ancient castle there. It was used at first it was said to have been built as a hunting lodge. Now a hunting lodge ties in with a lot of esoteric meanings with it that God, you can go on and on with that stuff, but like sacred hunts, hunting the boar, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But anyway, I can't remember the name of the king right off the top of my head, but he built this castle as a hunting lodge, allegedly. It's built exactly, it fits the template perfect. The castle to this day is a mystery on its dimensions. If you overlay the template over it, it's an exact match.
It makes
Not-
sense because Puglia is a mountainous region. That's a coastal town on the sea, the Ionian Sea, because I'm
Yeah.
from Calabria, which is attached to it.
Okay.
And that makes total sense. That they
Also,
could get there very easily.
the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, the template lines up with that. Both of those, Castel del Monte and the Temple Mount, the template, the treasure template lines up perfectly with the dimensions of it. And not only that, it's on the when you lay it on the map, it's not due north, south, east, and west. It's not following the cardinal directions. It's lined with the what a lot of people call the occult star, the pole star. There's a lot of words for it, but
Pentagram, pentacle.
it's several degrees off of due north, and they're lined up exactly like that. There's rumors that Castel del Monte had a lot of Templar connections. Nobody can prove it. There's people who claim no, that's not right. But who's to know? All I know is the template lines up with it, and it's almost like a perfect representation of the Dome of the Rock or the template.
Mm-hmm.
That's not
That's
coincidence.
very interesting.
That's for sure.
Wow.
No.
I'm going to be dreaming about this.
Well, that also ties in with Poussin's painting, Et in Arcadia Ego. That painting. I believe personally that painting is got is the symbolism in it. I wrote about it in the book.
That's a big one.
Poussin was known to have hidden a lot of symbols, and I think the painting leads to a treasure, not in France. There are, not to say, I still believe there's a lot of treasures and very sacred things to be found in France, but I believe when talking about the treasures, I think that lines up perfectly. And it's a long story, but using Cassini's celestial globe of 1792, the zodiac symbols, the symbols in that painting and Poussin's painting, they tie in with a location in Kansas.
Well, there's zodiac symbols in the painting.
Painting is loaded with symbols. It's very controversial. In fact, if you're in the chateau where the altar is, and there's Mary Magdalene, because again, I've been. She looks like she's pointing to something.
Yeah.
and they associate this space, this place, with that as well. So they're thinking, look, it's like a hint.
Well, and being a master painter, it was kind of odd. It's almost like he did it on purpose. The shadows aren't right.
Exactly. They're
There's
not.
a lot about that thing.
No, exactly. This painting has been dissected, on so many different levels,
It's also
by
painted over
academics.
something else.
Well, if they're spending so much time with it, there's something really
yes.
major with
Oh,
it.
yes.
There's something under it.
And if you
Yes.
look at that shadow, in my opinion, it looks like the shape of a harp. And a lot of people thought heart, it's like a harp, like David's harp.
Right.
But that harp lines up, in my opinion, with the constellation Lyra. And in Cassini's celestial globe of 1792, it's placed over on his globe. It's placed over Kansas. There's a lot more I explain a lot more about it, but I think it's just my theory that leads in part to a treasure in Kansas.
Yeah, see,
Well,
and I see the bottom piece underneath that harp, which looks like a corner for me. It's the Valencia, which is the Libra.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that also ties in with the lost cities, the seven lost cities of gold, the treasures of Cibola.
Mhm.
I know it gets deeper and deeper, but
Yeah, it's
like
a big rabbit hole.
Victorio Peak treasure. A lot of people claim that was one of the seven cities.
Mhm.
Well, one of the seven cities was said to have been in Kansas. Now, today they claim that city was in the eastern central part of Kansas, and I think they're off by about 150, 200 miles.
Really?
Yeah.
I like the theory, because anyone and all the academics who have analyzed this, I mean, I've never heard them even consider it, that it would lead overseas. And maybe that's why they're still trying to analyze it, because they just haven't quite. So it's a really interesting concept that you're presenting.
It's exciting.
It's why
Yes.
when I mentioned this, the line of rabbis, tracing it back to, I'm
Mhm.
looking for who it came from.
Mhm.
When I was going through the rabbis, it was one rabbi, Abraham Abulafia, I think, and I'm probably mispronouncing his name, but it reminds me of George Bush saying nuclear. So anyway,
Yeah, 3 times.
yeah. Abraham Abulafia had written a book, and it was a Kabbalistic book. He was a rabbi. His descendant, Paolo Riccio, was his converso name. I don't know if he was forced to convert to Christianity like a lot of people were, or if he did. I don't. But he had translated the Abraham Abulafia's work to Latin, and it was titled Porte Lucis, Gates of Light. Well, on the cover of that book, there's a tree of life. It's a rabbi sitting, and it's a tree of life. It's like a staff he's holding. It's the Kabbalistic tree of life, and he's pointing down at the floor. And I thought, what's the guy pointing at? And I was looking at a copy from the library in Austria, one of the universities in Austria. Anyway, he was pointing at the floor, and I thought, that's odd. What's he pointing at? And I got to looking at it, and I thought, okay, that was in 1516 when that was printed. So I looked for a known world, a map of the known world at that time, overlaid it, and it matches up with the coast of the New World. And, it's a rabbi dressed for traveling. He's holding the tree of life. I thought this is interesting, and everybody around that circle tied in with this story. That's why it was so important to me. It had all the symbolism I've been researching. The people were tied in with it. They all had a common goal. The main bad man for a lot of people back then was the Vatican.
Wow,
So
I was just going to ask you, what's the connection with Venice?
Venice.
Okay, no, you can continue because you
not
you
sure.
said Vatican
Well,
as I
let's
got
sit
Venice.
on that for a
Oh.
minute,
Yeah.
and let's do a station and sponsor
Oh.
ID
Oh,
while
Why?
everybody's kind of
Yeah.
pondering.
Okay. Yeah, we need to work.
Okay.
We need to work.
We're gonna ponder.
No, it's driving me crazy. The Venetian thing is driving me nuts. Okay.
Any clue? Yeah, I love that kind of stuff.
Okay, hold that thought. Station and sponsor ID, go for it.
Wow, take a deep breath. You are listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano, coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans on 105.3 and 107.7 FM, as well as the Roku channel. Our guests tonight returning, and if you haven't seen the first one, I suggest you do and then watch this one. Our guests tonight are Teresa Duke and Dan Duke, and they are the great-grandchildren of Jesse James. And guess what? Jesse James was not just an outlaw from the West. And that's all I'm saying. My lips are sealed. You have to tune in and listen from the beginning. If you're tuning in just now, don't worry about it. You know, you can stream our archives on any platform that you normally use. Search United Public Radio Network, and then you can search The Outer Realm with Michelle and I, and that's how you'll be able to listen to all of our archives. Remember to click like, notify, subscribe. You don't want to miss anything. And make sure that you share us with your friends and family, please. We'd like to give a big, huge thank you to the people at Folgers Coffee for your continued support in sponsoring our show from our first day to now. We are almost 400 episodes in, and we can't do this without you. Thank you so much. We appreciate you greatly. For our fabulous banner, and you've noticed our promo media is the best. Thank you to Steve McGinnis, horror illustrator. He's a fantastic artist who not only does horror. Wow, that came out wrong.
Okay.
Does horror first week back, but he also creates commission pieces as well, and you can find him on Facebook. If
And
you're loving our
Instagram.
intro, because we love all his music, and Instagram. Thank you, Michelle. If you're loving our intro, we love all of his music. That's Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, Justin Snicker, award-winning composer, vocalist, and musician. You can find his music on Amazon and Bandcamp, and you can stream him on any platform. Find him on Facebook and Instagram. He's dropping the coolest videos, the coolest creepy videos. I love them. On Facebook and Instagram every day. And if you're doing stories on Instagram, you can search Dr. Snick and use them as part of your creator tools. His music is fantastic. Now, if you're watching us on Facebook Live, or you're on YouTube right now, or any of our Facebook pages, make sure to give us a like, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to share with your friends and family. I'm tongue-tied because my head is here. Yeah, Venice. That's all I'm gonna say.
You know, I've been doing that all night. I've been so excited about this interview, and
Thanks.
Aw.
while I'm talking,
Us
That's
too.
true.
Yeah.
We love it.
when I'm
Yeah,
Thank
I was
telling-
so sad when I missed the last one. I watched it today.
Oh, well, I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad we got to meet now. But
Yeah.
while I'm talking, my mind, I'm saying one thing, and my mind keeps going, "Oh, don't forget this, don't forget that, and what about this?" And it's like, God, quit! I need to focus.
That's why I'm writing everything.
There's just so much, so many layers to the
It's-
story
it's-
that it.
Mhm.
It
sometimes
is,
hard
and
to
you
keep
have
track.
you have
Yeah.
to really take
Yeah.
it like the corner
Yeah.
pieces of the puzzle at a time.
Oh,
Build
yeah.
the outside, and the rest will come. That seriously, the Venice and that Fibonacci thing is sitting with me a little too heavy.
That's interesting.
There's a reason why there's 10 and it doesn't match the sequence. There's something to that. So please let me know what happens with
I'd
that.
love to get you and Heather Besser together. That
Oh,
was a
she's
friend I
doing a
mentioned.
great job. Like, she sounds amazing, but
She is. I'd love
Yeah.
to get all of us. We could be. In fact, we're working on a documentary.
I just had a deja vu, Michelle.
With J3 Films, great guys. We're working with them, looking for funding. So if you know of anybody who'd like to help fund a documentary, I'd love to have all y'all on there too. It would be
It's a
amazing.
party.
That sounds good. But talking about thinking about Oak Island, the Templar treasures, and the Oak Island thing. There was a researcher. He's also a Freemason, Peter Amundsen, and I contacted him. He said he'd gotten out of it. That's all he said. He said, "Good luck."
I've never watched the show, believe it or not.
I don't know. Well, he did a separate documentary. The reason I found out about Peter, he was claiming that he was on a documentary about Francis Bacon and Shakespeare, and he's a master code breaker. He had found that, according to his work, his finding, Bacon was Shakespeare. I believe it was a group of people, but long story short, his ties with Oak Island, somehow he ended up over there, and he found there were several boulders in a certain pattern. Nobody had ever figured it out before. They'd only noticed 3 of them, and they said it was a triangle figure.
Mhm.
Well, he found more boulders. It was 10 boulders in the shape of the Tree of Life, and I found that out about a year after I discovered the Tree of Life template, and I thought, oh my God, it was a tiny Tree of Life on Oak Island, and then it just fell in line with everything I was researching. And there's a lot of pieces that nobody's found yet, and I would love to be involved with anything dealing with that.
I have to wonder if it's at Wisconsin at the other site.
That I
But
don't
it would be
remember.
under foliage now because it goes back a real long
That's
time.
a good point. I don't remember any of that because
Yeah.
that's been 2 years.
I know.
You're aware that there's a tree that stood still on 9/11, right? When both towers went down.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You should take a close look at that tree.
Okay.
Definitely.
Definitely.
I'm just saying, like, to see it.
Yeah.
there-
Okay.
It could mark a point. It could mark anything because I think there's a lot to that. Now I forgot what I was going to say.
I've
You
been
were
doing
saying
that all
about
night.
That is a good connection.
Oak Island.
Oak Island.
And then I was going somewhere from there and I forgot. I hope it comes back because this one.
Wisconsin?
No, that
No,
was me.
Michelle.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll connect you up there, and I think you'll find it very interesting. Very.
Well, like also the template. I'm just trying to remember
Mhm.
things that kept popping in my head while I was talking on the Temple Church in London. On their western door, there's a metal design on the door, and it matches the template perfect. I mean,
Right.
there's all kinds of stuff.
You go throughout the old world, you will find symbolism everywhere because the Templars were everywhere. I mean, you can
Yeah.
get into Muslim Templars as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
There
yes.
were tons
Yeah.
there because
Mhm.
that predates a lot. It
I found a
goes
lot of
all over
that
the
out
ancient world.
from Timothy Hogan, the Grand Master, the current Grand Master, was telling. I was watching an interview. We've talked a little, but he was telling me about the Sufi and Druze traditions, and it made perfect sense to me. He said the Templar weren't crusaders. A lot of people seem to get that mixed up. He was saying, the way he described it, the Templar, they knew of holy sites in certain families who perpetuated the Gnostic traditions across Europe and the Middle East. And part of his description of the Templar and what they were doing back in the day when they first started, they knew war was coming. It was inevitable. Everybody knew war was coming. So the Templars' mission was basically to go out and find holy relics and documents and information and safeguard it from the chaos that was about to come.
That's who the Sinclairs were. They were the keepers of holy relics, of all
Yeah.
relics. Yeah.
And that kind of ties in with the story that we were told by someone that certain things were passed down in our family.
Right.
But to the first, I think wasn't it to the firstborn son? Is that how it was, Danny? Something like that.
Yeah.
But that kind of ties in with that. So that kind of just hit home.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I know how you feel.
nothing is by chance.
Yes.
Nothing is by chance. No
I remember how
coincidence.
I felt when I saw one of my ancestors' paintings up for auction in London, and I just happened to find it online. And remember, Michelle, I was livid that it was even
Like,
being
what is
sold.
this?
I'm like, why is it not coming down?
I don't know.
online?
She
Like,
was really
you know,
upset. Yeah.
it was the only painting, the portrait painted of Mary of Magdalene ever, and hung in the cathedral in Siena. And it was painted by Giovanni Pisano, who's a great grandfather. His, his father was Nicola. And there are 100 years before that, they started building Pisa, and then they were in the war. So things just went to the lee side, and it went back and forth and whatnot. But like my great, I don't know how many times grandfather was buried and then moved. He was buried at the foot of the bell tower, which was his design, with shiploads of sand from Jerusalem. Why?
And the church has Templar symbolism in it.
Is in the cathedral.
Why?
And that's 1500s. That's
Right?
1400s and 1500s. So there's a lot that goes what the hell,
What is it?
How
Your
Fibonacci
dots,
fits in there, I have no freaking idea.
Your dots could be connected to, I think you're still connecting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's better than you think. And
you're
even getting into Knights Templar. I mean, if you even want to acknowledge Columbus, but pre-Columbus, I know. But pre-Columbus, look at Dr. Kathleen Ball. She's coming on next week. And her discovery was the Knights Templar in Brazil going back to the 1200s.
Cave, right?
The cave.
Yep.
And there's symbolism, and it's all matched to the Holy Land, Portugal, all of it.
You're on the right 1200s.
Show. That is probably, that's a couple of 100 years before.
When you mentioned Columbus, mentioning Columbus, it reminded me of somebody that asked me. I've had people come up and say, "So you're trying to tell me Jesse James, who was an outlaw, was a good guy?" And I said, "No, I'm not saying that at all. Just because I'm descended from him doesn't mean he was a good guy." And they none of those people were angels by any means on either side of that fight. I think in the war, I call it a war. It's like a hidden war between the Templar, the Masons. In fact, the current Pope Francis, recently came out reaffirming their disapproval of Freemasons. So
the Vatican hates him. I love him. The Vatican hates him. I love Pope Francis. There isn't anything he won't say.
Yeah. So, but I like when they come out and say things, because at least where people stand. So, but there's good and bad on both sides, and I think overall, all the centuries from the time this started until now, though that what used to be a clear-cut line between good and bad, or what seemed to have been a clear-cut line, is turned into a wide, blurry gray area. And
who's to say he was this criminal? I look at the times. Then you would have to say that during gladiators there were criminals. I look at the times that they were living in, and was that life normal for them? It wouldn't be normal for us now. But you take a look at Montana. People watch Yellowstone like crazy. 1883, 1920, whatever. You see how they had to fight for things. I don't see it as any different. I don't believe I honestly don't believe in the labels. I believe in the crime that they committed, but I believe it was not just them. He just got around more, and he was more infamous because of the great battle and that. But, I believe that there's a lot of people that went unknown because their lineage just went fizzled out.
And I've said that's true. There were a lot of people who played. Jesse was he was an important person. He was important historically, Old West history and all that. And he was important in his role that he played for the Masons and the other groups, but he wasn't the only guy. He was just one of the more well-known ones, just like Lafitte and a lot of the other people.
But he was brilliant.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I agree.
Brilliant. He was brilliant. He was a great con artist too.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. He had to be smart to take on those multiple roles. Mm-hmm. And I have to wonder if there's something with his, not psychic, but psyche, that created that. Like H.H. Holmes has that mastermind. You have to really take a look at these outlaws and these historical criminals and see how smart they are. They got where they were because they're high IQs.
Oh
Yeah.
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 True.
All of them, Son of Sam, Bundy, Dahmer, they're Gacy, they're all high IQs. Frig, everybody who followed Manson, same thing. So, no, seriously.
The amazing thing is with this, though, is Jesse survived it, masterminded everything. And you guys are here to tell all of these stories that would maybe otherwise go untold.
You know, we used to get so pissed off thinking, you know, it's like, why is this just trying to prove who he was it was years and years of research and fighting. And then it dawned on us, he's the reason we had such a hard time proving who he was. He left clues behind. He wrote his name in his diary. He wrote his initials, his name, all the gang members and stuff. But when, you know, history recorded it the way he wanted it recorded. And that's what, and it's kind of weird because you're pissed off because you're trying to unravel all this confusing like a spider web. But then at the same time, if he hadn't have done that, we wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
Exactly. He was meticulous and he planned stuff. So he was brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant man.
So. Yeah,
made the right connections.
Especially if he played part in, you know, this whole, I mean, assisting all of these very powerful people.
Yeah.
To mastermind all of that is just a phenomenal thing. And now you're telling a tale that people are going, what? Trying to connect, even trying to connect an outlaw as in people's eyes as outlaw.
Well, you know, President Truman,
like the Knights Templar, who were, you know, for the most part known to be, you know, the keepers.
Well, that's like, you know, and people today it's easy. People are like, oh, he was a psychopath, a killer, this and that. He didn't kill as many people as a lot of people say. That said, he did kill people. But it's, you know, you've got people saying he was good. Some say he was bad. But President Truman, for example, thought very highly of Jesse James and the gang, Jesse and Frank. And we always felt sorry for Frank because nobody really talks about him that much.
Right.
He was just as he was there the whole time, just as much a part of it.
You're doing that right now.
Yeah,
it's good. That's good.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I'm right here. You just got a book sale.
Yeah.
This is fascinating.
Just ordered your book. Oh, sorry, Michelle.
No, I don't know what you can see and can't see.
Yeah, because it's right in front of me on the side. I can't see when it goes up under comments. I'm like, oh my God.
I'm just retraining myself.
Yeah, my eyes are so bad. Yeah, because I've been off for a while. Beautiful.
So here are the books.
Oh, those are gorgeous.
Of course, this is the one we covered in show number 1, The Mysterious Life and Fake Death of Jesse James, for those who are wondering. And of course, this is the one we're talking about tonight.
That's going on my shelf. Yeah.
And this is the next one. I have a feeling we're going to have to bring you guys back for. So
we'd love to be back. And
definitely.
Oh, you're gone. You got to unmute yourself. Hold on. There we go. Nope. You have to unmute yourself.
Click the microphone at the bottom.
You went and muted yourself. So, nope. Click the little mic right
next to you. Sorry about that.
There we go. That's all right.
That's okay.
No, I promise next time I won't monopolize most of the interview. I feel bad. Teresa's going to kick me next time she sees me.
To be honest with you, I'm glad he did tonight because I was so afraid I wouldn't even make the show today because I had a dental.
Oh no!
Yeah, yesterday, and my face and mouth are just kind of. So I was so afraid.
That's the worst
You're not drooling or anything, so that's all right.
You're a trooper. Just don't drink water in front of the camera.
Yes.
I'm so glad that. I'm so glad that you did make it, and I'm sorry for monopolizing your time.
No, I loved your insight tonight, all of it.
Thank you. I never do that. You can ask Michelle. I never, ever.
We are more, I don't know. I know I can speak for Danny, but we just want, we love all the different insights because we don't it just helps us learn more so we can kind of figure all of this stuff out.
Yeah, I learned a
So-
lot from you guys tonight.
Yeah,
My gosh.
we love it.
Oh, I'm
I always
glad.
end up feeling like I always feel like I rambled too much, but there's so much to say, and I try to get all the important points out, and it's like half of them are still out there left unsaid. But it's that's
We just
why
find
it
on
took a book.
this show,
3 books.
we prefer the guests to do
Yeah.
the majority of the talking.
Yeah, it's
because
passion.
You have, it's like what you say, you know, you only have a certain amount of time, and you need to get that out. So we
It's
don't get
so much
offended
more
by that
than
here.
it's so much more than just about the treasure. It's spiritual. There's just so many different layers to it.
It's
It's
really
And I don't
it
know
is
if
that
it will
journey.
ever end for us. But
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing. I think I didn't say it earlier. I meant to, but I didn't. There, it sounds corny, but you know, it sounds just like a national treasure where he said, this is meant for a museum. It's not meant for one man. And you know, when I first started looking for the treasure, I thought maybe we'd find an old saddlebag with a couple of gold or silver coins in it. That would have been amazing. But when you find out from the Attorney General for the state of Texas and other people that it was literally tons of gold, and finding the history behind it, it's a lot more important than just one person or even one group to
It's
have.
history.
Yeah, it's
world
history. And it's also
potentially
part of the
very
future.
important. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So this is something that people have wondered where everything went. And until it's found, you know, it's just one more piece of the puzzle, but it's another. I think people love a good mystery.
oh
Yeah.
yes.
And they love trying to figure out mysteries. And I think this is part
I
of
know
that.
I do.
And your research can just
Yeah.
continue, you know?
yeah.
So I don't know. I love it. I love it. And you know, what are you going to do next? I mean, we know you've got 3 books, as we know we're going to book you for another show. But do you have another one in the works? Or what are you guys doing?
Thinking about books, but lately we've been working with J3 Films on a documentary, and that's why I mentioned earlier. I gave them a plug, and I hope it was okay.
Of course.
Absolutely.
That's what we're doing. It's me and Teresa and Heather and the guys at J3 Film and Jack and John, and we're just looking for a way to fund it and go from there. So
Good for you.
Yeah, that's exciting. So which part exactly do you want in the documentary? Are you just going to talk about his life? Are you talking about this? What is it exactly?
all 3 books, basically. Everything, you know, start with Jesse, talk about, you know, show everything we've got, proving that he faked his death, the DNA of the holes in the history story, you know, traditionally accepted history, and pointing out all the falsehood, you know, the false side of history, which is a lot when it comes to Jesse. But like I said earlier, he needed that so he could live. But then from there to, you know, the treasures, and the third one, we're still talking about that. There's a lot of powerful ties that tie in with it. Like I'd mentioned, the former Attorney General Wagner Carr, who showed us where the treasures were. He was good friends with President LBJ. LBJ there was a man named Billy Saul Estes, who was said by many, he was a famous, infamous, I guess, con man. I met him personally. My mother and I did, and I think Teresa did.
Mm-hmm.
We met Billy Saul Estes. He wanted Mom's autograph, and he had one of her books, and he said he'd call her. Found out later, like 6 months later, he was following her. He lived up near Dallas, and the guy kept showing up at the same mailbox, etc., that my mother was going to mail packages.
Weird.
Very strange stuff.
Stalker.
But Billy
That's
Saul,
psychopathic.
well, he was claimed he was very intelligent too.
Well, yeah,
he
but
was
they are sociopaths and psychopaths
Oh,
are
I
high
know.
IQ. Yeah.
very.
Right.
Yeah, he was the first guy to be acquitted for murder because of in the U.S. because of cameras in the courtroom, and a lot of people say he was LBJ's hitman. Some people say that. There's no proof on that, of course, But when we met him, I
Thank you,
thought
web.
he walked up to my mom and said, "Do you know who I am?" And she goes, "I know your name. Aren't you supposed to know where Hoffa's buried?" And I thought, my God, you don't say stuff like that. There were reporters all around.
Well, Dad.
I thought, well,
Yeah.
we're dead now, but no,
Oh,
he,
wow.
he just looked down and didn't even acknowledge that was said.
Oh my God.
But
Yeah.
we've met
Wow.
a lot of people involved with this, and they're high up, tied
Yeah.
in with LBJ. Wagner Carr, for example, the Attorney General, was on the Warren Commission. He was part of the Warren Commission for the
Wow.
assassination of JFK, and it just
Yeah.
keeps going.
So he's prone to lying?
I couldn't hear you.
I said he's prone to lying.
Yeah. Billy
I'll
Saul?
say it.
Oh,
Billy
I
Saul?
want to put the show in private mode.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I want everybody to hear
No,
it.
I think it's just a comment. Like, it's just a personal opinion that the whole commission was full of it. But
Oh, no,
anyways,
I know.
Well,
I have some
Oh,
advice
yeah.
for you.
Lots of rabbit holes there too.
Yeah. I was asked to work that. I'm like, no. I have some advice for you. Your research. Color coordinate, Teresa, what you think is spiritual, factual. Color coordinate it. Then set up a wall like the FBI.
that's how I
You
do
have
everything.
Okay, then you're good. String it along and you'll get your pieces, but
Oh,
don't
okay.
second guess yourself when you're putting stuff up there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Use
All right,
post-it notes,
definitely.
color coordinate, and it'll help you. That's how I work cases, even as a medium. It'll help you clear your mind of fact and what you assume or your intuition is telling you.
That's
Okay.
exactly what I get. Butcher paper and a marker, and I put it on a poster board and I hang it right in front of my desk. So while I'm at the computer, it's in my face, and that's all I think about.
Then I mean a wall.
Okay.
A wall?
Yeah,
Wall. Seriously. Have you ever
definitely.
watched Homeland?
My-
Watch how she does her walls. Seriously, like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna make a big difference because things will pop up, and I'm seeing that there's things that have slipped your mind, and these things will come back to light when you put
Yes.
this on the wall. And Teresa's
Okay.
going to be a big part of this organization.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Uh-huh.
there is so much that it does. There's a
Oh.
lot of things that do kind of slip
Oh,
our
yeah.
minds. And then
Yeah.
later we're like, oh yeah, we forgot that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. You know,
And
with
I get-
crimes, you do it with, it's sad because you do it with crime scene photos, and obviously you
Yeah.
have to close off the rest of your house to your
Yeah.
family. But yeah, like it fits better. There's a meticulous way, there's a mythology to it. And you've got it. You just have a smaller version. You need to expand it.
Okay.
And I think it'll really help both of you work together
Yeah.
with that.
Thank
That's
you.
Thanks for the
My
advice.
pleasure. I think Teresa's going to be a big part in this, especially with the organizing of the thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I always have to. My mind, I am very
You're
impatient.
scattered.
Usually.
You're
You're
everywhere.
passionate because
Yeah.
you're holding it all in. I'm like that too. That's why
Yeah.
I recognize it because that's how I am.
Mhm.
Michelle
Yeah.
calls me squirrel. Like there's a
You-
reason.
You hit
Yeah.
the nail on the head.
Yeah.
I hold it all in. You know, I don't go out in public like at the grocery store or even with friends talking about this.
My
So, I
granddaddy
hold
was
it in.
Jesse James.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And-
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
something that we have always, it's so weird. We don't discuss it with like friends or
And then, when I do get a chance to talk about it, like on this podcast, I'm literally all over the place. It feels like I'm fighting to keep myself focused and stay on one part of it, and knowing full well there are dozens of rabbit holes going off. It's like each topic of this has a dozen rabbit holes. And
That's
it always
why
reminds
you need
me
to
of,
do that big wall. It
Yeah.
opens up all the rabbit holes, and eventually they keep going, and you keep adding. That's why you need the wall.
that's true.
okay.
Yeah.
With that said, gosh, we're at the top of the hour pretty much. So already.
Thank you.
I know.
Thank you.
Guys, it's such a pleasure having you guys on. It really is. You guys are a lot of fun,
We
very
love
informative. You know,
Thanks for having
it
us
was-
on.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Pleasure. We'll do it again. I will be in touch. I will have dates, and we're booking into February. So it'll be a bit of a wait, but
It's
you know,
worth it. That will
thank
get
you.
that wall going.
That will, and don't share it with anyone. You don't want people's opinions except the two of you, unless they're people that work with you. Like, it's
Okay.
not something that your friends come over and you share that wall, because
Oh, yeah.
that will mess with you.
But it will
Seriously.
look great on a
That's just like
documentary
writing
when
a
all
book.
is said and done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
As long
agree
as you don't have the
completely.
Beautiful
crime scene
visual.
photos, that freaks my family out.
Right.
That's also
don't
like
go in the office. Yeah.
No,
when
exactly.
you write a book, you don't want somebody reading the book you wrote, a friend or family usually, just
Right.
because their opinion's gonna mess your head up.
You know,
That's
well,
the thing with this wall.
edit
You
it
don't want
1,500
opinion
times.
unless it's someone
You'll have
that's
a whole other book. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
you
unless
know.
there's
Yeah.
someone that's working with you. It's
Exactly.
not worth it. Yeah.
That's right.
Well, guys, I will be in touch with you, and I will get
Yes,
links
thank you.
over to you. And I thank you again
Thank
for
you.
joining us
I hope one
tonight.
day we can all meet y'all in person. I would love that.
I would love it.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I love
You
it.
never know. You never know.
Maybe.
This circle
Or
is
do a
getting
live
bigger
show
right now.
from there. Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Everybody
Okay.
goes, come on, we're going to do a live
I
show
was
from
gonna
over
say,
here.
wait
Okay.
until the election.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
After the election.
Things aren't crazy enough. But
Oh, yeah.
anyway, guys, thank you. And I will
Thank-
be in touch with both of
thank
you.
you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
both so much.
It was
Thank you.
a
It's such an
pleasure.
honor. Thank you. Have
It's
a
an
great
honor for
weekend.
us.
Oh,
Bye.
thanks.
Me.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Night. Well, we have come to the end of another fantastic segment. Knights Templar stuff, very, very near and dear to us. That's for darn sure. And in fact, so much so, we're going to have some more of that, next week. And you're very welcome. So anyway, big thank you to Dan and Teresa Duke. Super, super informative, and such a compliment to have the Grand Master say, yeah, you're really close. You got it closer than anybody else. That tells you that book is worth a really great read. So anyway, thank you to our special guests. Thank you to Folgers Coffee for sponsoring the show. Thank you to Dr. Snick and to Steve McGinnis, also, who sponsor our show. We appreciate you all so very much. Okay, guys, thank you all. It just wouldn't be the same without you guys either. You make it that much more fun. So next week, we're going to be welcoming back Dennis Stone. For those of you who caught the first segment, he is the owner of America's Stonehenge. Yeah, like 100 acres worth of crazy monuments, just amazing. He's going to be catching us up on his continued research and ongoing discoveries that are happening there. Might get into some astrological alignments, things like that. Just really, really great stuff. Also, the return of Kathleen Ann Ball, who will be discussing her book, A Grail Quest, Discovery of a Knights Templar Cave in Brazil. So she had spoken about the first documentary she did, which is available on Gaia, and she's doing a sequel. And she's done a whole lot of research in between, and it's just pretty impressive stuff. So she is going to catch us up, and she's going to, show us. We have some pictures, show and tell. We love that, don't we? So anyway, all of you have a fantastic weekend. Thank you for tuning in. We love you. We appreciate you. Please like, follow, share, subscribe, whatever the case may be. And we thank you in advance for that. So we will see you guys next week. Good night.